Sex is the life force energy that runs through us all. Can you use sexual energy for your spiritual evolution? Or perhaps for emotional healing? Is it even possible? Clinical sexologist Dr. Martha Tara Lee will explore all these and more on Eros Evolution on OMTimes Radio.
Welcome to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meets. This is your host, Dr. Martha Tara Lee. I'm a clinical sexologist based in Singapore, and my company is called Eros Coaching. That's EROS coaching.com. And I decided to start this show because I'm interested in the link between sexuality and spirituality. Since for a long time, in my head, I separated the two, and really it wasn't until 1 year ago or so that I finally really understood the link between the two. And so this show explores the link between them with all my different guests. In today's show, we are finding self-love with Lee Harrington. In a world where we speak about our relationships and love for others, it is important to examine where our relationships with ourselves comes into play. This show will examine how we get to know ourselves, internal self-abuse dialogue, building success with others through self-affirmation, and taking ourselves out on dates as a way to live a more fulfilling life through deeper awareness of life and love alike. Lee Harrington is an internationally known spiritual and erotic authenticity educator, gender explorer, eclectic artist, and award-winning author and editor on human erotic and sacred experience. He's been traveling the globe from Sydney to Seattle, Berlin to Boston, teaching and talking about sexuality, psychology, faith, desire, and more, and has been married to himself since 2010. You can find out more about Lee on his website, passionandsoul.com. So this is the third time Lee is returning to the show. Welcome, Lee.
It's great to be back. I feel very spoiled to get to come on so often.
Oh, I love you so much, and it's such an honor to have you back. So today we're talking about self-love. Tell us more about what inspired you to come out with this topic.
So I have, most of my life, I struggled growing up with some trauma, and I had a lot of stories about myself of I'm not worthy, I'm not a good person, who could possibly love me, I'm bad. And I had this realization one day that the words I said to myself that were sometimes very, very toxic, the words I was saying to myself were words I wouldn't let another person say to me.
Mm.
And when I had that realization, I realized that I had really become an unpleasant person for others to be around because I was projecting this story about who I was.
Mm.
And it was being very painful to me as a person, as well as, as a person dating, but also as a person who's just trying to live my life, both spiritually and just on this planet. And I made a decision to start to get to know myself. And after a number of years of exploration, made a decision to kind of evolve that relationship with myself.
So it sounds like that was a crossroads of your life. What changed when you made that decision?
Oh, it's got a little funny story to it. I decided after a number of years of dating me, and by dating me I mean going out to things that I liked without having an excuse. Once a week saying, I'm going to take myself out to a movie, or I'm going to sit with myself and have a nice dinner, or whatever it might be. And I decided to buy myself an engagement ring, where I had heard from a friend of mine that they had gotten married to themselves, and I thought that was very silly. I thought it was almost pretentious. And I sat with that idea, and when I decided I will get myself an engagement ring, I got the ring and it sat on my desk. And when I thought about doing it, I realized that I actually didn't I was afraid that I would say no to me. And once I finally did go through the whole process of getting engaged to me and then having a marriage to myself, a ritual I did for myself, I have really been able to open up this and access this port of love inside me, this well that was ready to bubble over, that was think of it as a pressure cooker, that I was holding down all of these emotions and all of these feelings, and I have found a way to access those feelings, both positive and challenging, because I create a space, just like I would create a space for someone I was in relationship with to share their feelings. I create a safe space for myself to share those feelings.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying about this ritual that you created for yourself. I think a lot of people, they wouldn't do such things, It's like, oh yeah, it's a nice to do, but I don't have the time for it, or like that's like what you just said, frivolous, or feels weird. So to make that decision to do that, and having actually done it, really, I suppose, feel the benefits of it in a much deeper way than people who just throw it, or dismiss it.
Well, and I don't think it should be a judgment. For me, marriage is a useful metaphor. Because for some people, marriage is a bad thing, in which case this concept would be a very bad thing, right? That it is, people would go, oh, marriage is all fail, and you can never get divorced from yourself, right? And so that might not be a good metaphor or a good allegory. And for me, it's the notion of how do we, as individual people, get to know what we want, get to know who we are, get to know our own desires and our hopes and our dreams. Because sometimes, our family or our friends or our lovers or our partners will say, where do you want to go to dinner? And it sounds like such a simple question. But if we haven't actually figured out what kind of food we like as people, we might not actually know that question on a personal level, right? Going out to dinner might sound like a small thing to start with, but it's a first step to me of what do you want to do for dinner creates the next question of what kind of artwork do you like? And when I say what artwork do you like, I don't mean what artwork did your society say you should like. I was actually having this conversation with my partner recently about the idea that we have been told to really like this one kind of art that was very expensive. That we were told that, this one artist should, we should really, really like them. And that, I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was a print of a Monet. And that people go, oh, Monet is so beautiful, so wonderful. And we realized that actually we just don't like Monet. And it's okay. You don't have to like classical artwork if what you would rather spend your money on or the walls in your home. If you want to have it have a giant piece of tapestry from the 1970s, even if other people say that it's ugly or that it's out of fashion, if you love it, that's about self-authenticity. Spending your love and your energy and your joy, and that includes the space of room on your wall for a piece of artwork. If that is what is true to you, why are we suppressing ourselves as people with what culture said we should do or our parents said we should do, instead of being true to who we are?
Very good questions indeed. I really love what you're sharing. It's very profound. How do we as individuals get to know who we are? This includes where we want to go for dinner. This includes the kind of artwork that we like. And even figuring out whether marriage to ourselves is something that works for us. I There's so much wisdom in what you're sharing. I really appreciate this.
And I think for me, these baby steps are what helps us then ask the next question of, who do we want to be as spiritual beings? How do we explore our authentic self on that larger or meta scale? Because if we don't necessarily start with the baby steps, we don't have the groundwork for asking those bigger questions. And I think a lot of people on this quest to be fulfilled, authentic, spiritual people don't have the groundwork and the framework to ask the bigger questions. And so for me, that's part of that process.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate. Why is this all so important to learn how to love ourselves and then go on to the next bigger step of exploring how we want to show up as spiritual beings? Why is this important, you feel?
And for me, the simple piece is that it creates the basic standing stones for us to be able to ask those big questions. That if I don't know whether I like to sit still or not, will answer the question of whether I should have a sitting practice in Buddhism or a walking meditation practice, as in walking a labyrinth. They're both tools for creating a silent mind and a stillness of mind. But if I don't know the question about how I access my body, I can't access those tools. That if I believe I am a bad person and I need to clearly work harder to be able to be a good Buddhist and sit still, then it doesn't help in creating that next step.
Thank you very much, Lee, for what you're sharing. We'll find out more about finding self-love after this break.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know. I've tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
If you've ever said, I do want it all. I do want happiness. I do want love. And I do desire the happily ever after fairy tale life, then this show is for you. Join me, Dana Nicole Brandon, for my internationally acclaimed show, Bridal Talk Radio, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, where I'll bring you the top experts in the fields of communication, money, relationships, finance, pleasure, play, travel, sexuality, parenting, real estate, adventure, comfort, care, passion, and love.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive, dedicated community. As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meets. We are finding self-love with Lee Harrington today. He is an academic, outspoken philosopher, sexuality podcaster, kink and bondage expert, gender adventurer, and has been blogging about sex and spirituality since 1998. You can find out about him on passionandsoul.com. Just before break, we were talking about the importance of finding out who we are before we can ask the bigger question of how we want to be as spiritual beings. And this is important because this is the basis and the basic when it comes to asking bigger questions. So, welcome back to the show, Lee.
Yes.
Thank you. So, could you tell us more about how self-love is important and in helping us maybe find love for others and for having compassion with ourselves?
Absolutely. I have found in this practice that I have been doing, and I believe it is a practice because it takes practice. I think that's forgotten in some spiritual practices that people say, oh, I'm not very good at doing this, or I'm no longer doing that. And I'm like, well, it takes practice. It's why it's called that. And I have been working with this notion of as we develop awareness of self, we can develop a sense of self-compassion. To know that to have an awareness that, you know what, here are some of the challenges we faced in life. And it's okay that today we didn't have a very good day because these things happened at the office or we had these challenges with our children. And developing the self-compassion for our struggles in the day-to-day life, compassion for the past that we've lived, compassion for our own bodily experience, that maybe we can't lift those boxes today because our back is hurting. Once we have that notion of self-compassion, it can become easier to have compassion for others. If I know that I've had a challenge today with my body, I might have more compassion for my partner when they're having challenges with their body today. And in developing this idea of compassion, it is one of the keys to love, in my opinion. Compassion, patience, balance for the different parts of our life and our connection, gratitude for the things and the beauty we have in our lives and the things and the beauty that the people around us bring to us. These are all pieces of the thing we call love, an awareness of who they are fully as complex human beings. And I think it is challenging for us to really understand that other people are complex human beings until we know that we are complex human beings. How can we possibly, fully get that? There's a term that Robert Heinlein uses in some of his science fiction work that is to grok, G-R-O-K, to grok a concept.
Okay.
Yeah, to grok a concept. And when I read this in a science fiction novel, I went, oh, there is a difference between understanding something psychologically or intellectually, that, I understand that people suffer. But until I know in my skin what suffering feels like and looks like and smells like and tastes like, I won't really grok that concept.
Wow.
And I think part of that idea of fully understanding on a cellular level these notions of compassion and love and gratitude, it can be hard to incorporate it on a meta level, on a large level. And it reminds me of the practice of the metta prayer, I believe it is called, where it is a prayer that says, that it helps strengthen our desires for the world to be healthy. This notion that I wish for there to be compassion and healing for myself. But I also want there to be peace and compassion and happiness and safety for my beloveds and my family. I wish for that peace and happiness and safety and awakening for the people who I have challenges with, and then expand that to my nation, and then expand that to all people of the planet, and expand that to all living things, and then expand that to all of this planet, and then expand that to all of the universe. How can we fully do that without having that first moment? I forgive myself. I wish peace for myself. I wish happiness for myself. I wish safety for myself. And I wish awakening into the light of our true nature for myself so that I can be free. Who I am is intrinsically entwined with the entirety of the universe. This applies in quantum mechanics as well, right? That who we are as beings is entwined with all of reality. And so I believe that the notion of taking myself out on a date, as silly as it might sound, is intrinsically entwined and intertwined with that idea of finding the truths in the universe and setting all of it free towards its true nature. It's one and the same.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. I think part of that is also entwined with the notion of abuse and violence. That if I think it's okay to be violent against myself, whether that is physically violent, whether that is violent in the language I use against me, whether that is, the little micro violences we might do around what we consume or who we're in relationship with. These little moments, if I accept violence against myself, there's a part of my brain that says it's okay to be violent against others. Or it's okay for other people to be violent against myself. And if I am planting the seed inside my own mind that hurting myself is okay, and that therefore hurting others is okay, and that therefore it becomes this spiral into darkness that I myself don't want to live. I don't want to live a path. I am not called to a path, I should say. I am not called to a path where those kinds of behaviors are okay to do against others, or where it is okay for those behaviors to be done against me. Therefore, who am I to be different than what I expect from others or what I want to do unto others? The golden rule means that to do unto others as I would have them do unto me requires that doing unto me part. Requires that awareness and that knowingness, that core construct of self. And I don't think a lot of us on this planet know self. I think a lot of us, including myself, know the I am. And how can we know I am happy or I am sad until I know what it feels like to be I am happy, or to feel I am sad? I don't know if that makes sense, though. I feel like it becomes almost pedantic or almost silly and childlike. And I don't mean for it to sound, infantile, or I don't mean it to sound like somebody is being stripped of their adulthood with these concepts. I just think that there is something that children have in these notions of figuring out whether they want to color in a coloring book or whether they want to build with blocks.
I think, I really think what you're saying, I am happy, I'm sad, is a huge part of being able to work with whatever we are feeling, even if it's negative, so that it can shift states. People who find a lot of time repressing and suppressing and ignoring it actually becomes bigger, It it jumps up in their face and actually takes on a life of its own.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
So
I was actually really touched recently by a gentleman by the name of Monsignor X who appeared on my podcast that talked about the idea of rage and anger, that when we suppress these feelings, instead of saying, you know what, I get angry and I get frustrated, if I don't acknowledge those parts of me and I just say they don't exist, we don't leave a place for the complexity of us. And it's hard to love us if we don't see ourselves as complex beings. That's not love. That's a fortune cookie. That is, that's a Hallmark greeting card. That's an ephemeral construct rather than a core sense of love, like true love.
Absolutely. Love what you're sharing. So just to summarize a little bit of what Lee has just been sharing, he's talking about being able to have compassion for ourselves so that we can have compassion for others. These are keys to love, and in turn we can have more gratitude. He talked about how we are complex human beings, and he talked about meta love, meta prayer, basically being able to extend love from beyond yourself to that of people, living things, humanity, the planet, and the universe beyond. That includes being able to forgive yourself, and this also extends to the kind of abuse and violence that we have towards ourselves, being able to then really work through it, and even being able to identify the way we are feeling is a big part of self-love. He introduced this word croak, which is new to me. It means being able to understand versus knowing in your skin. And I think that's a big part of what we continue to get again and again. So more with Lee after this break.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
September 23rd. Mark that down on your calendar. Put it in your phone. Whatever you do, circle that date. 9 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. Yes, it is the return of the Joe Show. We will come back live with Season 9. Wow, 9 seasons. I can only think of 4. Winter, spring, summer, fall. Salt, pepper, oregano, and thyme. No. Anyways, we don't have that much time. We're going to be back live September 23rd. Don't forget, 9 p.m. Eastern, here on OMTimes Radio.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com. Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meet. And this is Eros Evolution on OMTimes Radio Network. You can share this show with your friends by sending them the link omtimes.com/mobile. This is a link that allows your friends to be able to listen to the show without needing to download any app. Surely we don't need to download any more apps. And I'm sure your friends will love this show. We are talking about finding self-love with Lee Harrington today. He has published many books, including Sacred Kink, The Eightfold Paths of BDSM and Beyond, and more Shibari You Can Use, Passionate Rope Bondage and Intimate Connection, as well as on Starry Thighs, Sacred and Sensual Poetry. I believe that's your latest book, right, Lee?
It is. For the last 20 plus years, I've been writing a variety of poetry and prose, and as I have also been blogging, and I realized that part of my own journey, as I was sharing some of my poems with people, I was being told that some of them express some really beautiful self-love and personal journeys in my spiritual discourse, as well as how I was evolving as a sensual and sexual being. And I spent the last 2 years going through all of this work and working with the amazing Deborah Addington, who runs transtheology.org, and working with her to curate this work so that it would be accessible to a broader audience and follow a flow of consciousness and understanding.
Awesome. And people will be able to get your latest book on Amazon alongside your other books?
Absolutely.
Okay, and also they can check out your website, passionandsoul.com, and they can get all the different links.
Yes, indeed. I know we were talking earlier on, you were talking about how you've had your own experiences with finding self and finding that internal experience and connection.
Yeah, that's right. I was going to share this little story. Basically, I was having a conversation with a friend recently, and we talked about the importance of being able to love ourselves more. And so he asked me, how can I love myself more? And this is kind of profound to me. I learned how to love myself more because my entire survival depended on it. If you've been dumped and depressed and really life just basically sucks, then you realize that nobody's going to save you except you just need to basically take care of yourself. And when you go much, much deeper than that, beyond just survival, the way to thrive is really to love. So when my friend asked me how did I get to that point of loving myself in such a deep way, first it started off with how my survival depended on it. And then it became, I don't just want to survive, I want to thrive. And that's how I went much, much deeper. So being able to love myself in a deep way included treating myself as a precious thing. When I treat myself as precious, this means taking care of it's just more than self-care, right? Like, showering and brushing your teeth is much more than self-care. It's more about, I agree with you, compassion at first, before you can even talk about love. For some people, that concept may not be relevant to them at first. And then when you get deeper and deeper, that transcends more to beyond compassion to love. So it's something that lots of people talk about, but really being able to embody in your body is much deeper than that.
No, I absolutely hear that notion that I love that language of that. Beyond surviving, I want to not just survive, I want to thrive, I think is a really positive way to look at how we as beings are being on this planet. That we can just survive, right? I can go to work, I can come home, I can pay the bills, I can have a roof over my head, and you know what? I'm doing a lot better than some people on the planet. But that is very different than thriving. Being fully in my complete life experience, present in who I am and all of that journey. And it's funny because I do know people who love themselves but are not necessarily surviving on that are barely surviving, but do have that core sense of love. So I think that you can have them lay over each other, but that you can have also them be separate entities. And when I say are barely surviving, I'm referring to people that I have known who've been on their deathbed, who found that little piece of self. But I would personally prefer to find those steps while getting to also survive on the fullest level, survive and thrive and journey in my fullness and help others journey in their fullness too. Let us raise us all up. And for me, part of that journey is also reminding myself with daily little self-affirmations. I love the one you just gave of, I don't want to just survive, I want to thrive. It sounds like a basic one, but it's a really beautiful one. I have another friend of mine who says, I want to live an A+ life.
A+.
Right? And I thought that was, because they asked me at one point in my life when I was in a more challenged point, if you had to rank your life right now, how do you think you were doing? And I said, probably a C. I have a solid C right now, out of an A through F scale. At least I'm not flunking, right? I'm not an F. And she looked at me and said, do you really want to be living a C? And I said, you know what? Today, my compassion for myself says that a C is okay. That a C is okay, and there will be days like that. But that I do want to strive, in her language, towards an A+ life. That there are days that we are soaring, but there are days that self-affirmation, I want to live an A+ life, helps us strive towards something that is even further than where we're at today. And I think that's really beautiful. I also have on my phone, on my smartphone, I have a folder of photographs, right? Because you can have the photographs of family or you could have photographs of whatever. And I have a photograph of quotes. And some of them are, quotes from Mahatma Gandhi or from various, from Martin Luther King, etc. But some of them are, simple ones like dare to be remarkable. Right? Or I have another one that says turn your wounds into wisdom. And to me, that is a piece of self-love that buried in the wounds of my life, I have a wisdom that has bubbled forth. I have a wisdom that has bubbled forth. And to me, that is a beautiful thing. I have another one on here that says, be unapologetically you. Because for years, I had a thing that tempered me down that said, you're quirky, you're strange, and that these were negatives.
Yeah, all these labels.
Yeah, that they were labels of negativity. Instead of saying, you know what? I am a distinct, unique individual. And it's okay if, I like to wear wingtips with bright colored socks and giant earplugs and still teach at a university. I can be a strong, powerful, intellectual individual and, tie-dye my hair if I want to. That I can be all of these things and still be true and still be me. And I think that is part of that self-love. I have another one as I'm scrolling through here that says, keep calm and sparkle.
I love that.
And so I think it's really important to look at for yourself, whoever you are as an individual listening, who are you and how can you affirm the greatness of you? Whatever that core you is, that excellent you, that you-ness that is the fullness called I am, right? Because people say, like, I am a doctor, I am a lawyer. No, those are the things you do, right? Those are the things you do. That's not who you are, unless that is a core part of your calling. And for some people, I heal the world. I strive to heal people. That is part of the I am. But to really look at you, and who are you, and how can you affirm the fullness of you? Because keep calm and sparkle might be something that affirms the I am that is Lee, that is me. But it might not affirm you, whoever you are that is listening.
Beautiful. As you speak, you speak with such presence and power. It's not just what you're saying, it's the way you're saying it that is just so incredibly healing. I feel as though my whole being is starting to expand, and I feel much more grounded as you share what you're sharing. So this is really great stuff. Thank you.
Well, to me, when I hear those words from you, which are a blessing, and I am grateful for the blessing you are giving me, but to me, I also hear those words, and what I say is, there's some part of the I am that is Martha. There is some part of that I am that heard a word and went, that one's true. And that's about your journey. I just happen to be offering some words up, and there's some part of your journey that says, that. Because you're not saying, I'm awakening to every single word, right? There's some pieces of what I am sharing that to you say truth, which means to me, there is a wisdom inherent in you. There is a wisdom inherent to every one of us that can hear truth, that can hear self-truth when people share it, even in the most unlikely of places.
Beautiful. We are on Eros Evolution today talking about truth and how you can find self-love. I hope that deep within you, you may be listening to this show because you're trying to figure out what self-love means to you and how to have more self-love. So more after this break.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Eros Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Imagine receiving healing, vibration-raising energy as you listen to the radio. Energy that flows effortlessly to you. Imagine exploring all things metaphysical, sharing in an ongoing adventure. Join me, Karen Smoot, along with my co-hosts Lisa Victorson and Wendy Weber for Immersion into Source every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on OM Radio.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the Internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meets. We are talking about finding self-love with Lee Harrington today, and he's been on the show previously twice before, and he was talking about sacred sexuality and kink in one, and in another he was talking about gender talk and trans. So you can find these two shows by finding at a glance all my previous shows. So you can find these two shows, especially from Lee Harrington. If you like today's show, you can actually go by doing Google and you just key in Eros Evolution at a glance. You'll be able to find a link that brings you to this page, which lists all the episodes. So it's much easier for you if you want to find all my previous shows. Just do that. Google Eros Evolution at a glance and you'll be able to find the other two shows that Lee Harrington has been on. And we're with Lee Harrington, who is an internationally known spiritual and erotic authenticity educator, gender explorer, eclectic artist, and award-winning author and editor on human, erotic, and sacred experience. And he's written several books, including his latest on Starry Thighs, Sacred and Sensual Poetry, which actually does talk a little bit about self-love. So you want to check him out by going to his website, passionandsoul.com. So because today's show is really, Eros Evolution is all about the link between sexuality and spirituality, I just have to ask Lee, what do you think is the link between self-love, spirituality, and sexuality?
I believe that all people have an intrinsic experience possible through accessing their body. For many people, their bodily access has a huge opportunity through their sensuality and their sexuality. In recent years, there's been a lot of discussion in, I should say recent years, I'd say since the 1950s, but more externally, like more openly now, around the notion of masturbation. And its place in how we get to know ourselves and how we could have better sex with our partners. And I've been really thinking about the idea of what do we as individuals and how do we as individuals explore the sensual, whether it's by going out to dinner by ourselves, happily going to the place that we love in the core of our heart, or with somebody, but spending that silent moment with us, enjoying that perfect bite of food. Right? Through those sensual experiences, or taking a long bath, or going for a run on a cool autumn evening, or whatever it might be, those sensual experiences of the skin, but also the sexual experiences of personal erotic discovery. How do you as a person want to be touched? There's a myth out there that that men always like a certain type of hand job, for example, that, or that women like to lay on their back and masturbate with their fingers inside their vagina, or whatever it might be. These are myths that are out there and are not true for all people. There are many women and men who like to masturbate with their body facing down against a pillow or a flat surface, or rubbing up against something. And until that we discover that about ourselves, it will be hard to share that information with others. If we, for example, if you are someone who has a clitoris, to know that you enjoy vibration above, to the side, below, directly on. Do you enjoy light stimulation or heavy stimulation? Are you someone who wants to play with their body for hours and enjoys penetration in one or multiple orifices? Or are you someone who wants to have a very short experience with your sex but wants to be sensually touched all over your body? Are you an individual who enjoys prostate massage, someone who enjoys having their balls pulled on, etc.? But if we don't take the time to explore ourselves, it can be very challenging to share with others. Now, there are people in partnership or group relationships where these explorations can happen with our partners. But part of that exploration, even with another person, involves the courage and the self-love to have that courage to say, that thing you're doing, I really appreciate it, but it's not working as well as that other thing you were doing. Because sometimes we have a story that's been passed down to us intergenerationally, that's in our media and in our whatever, that says, well, just tough through it. Let him get what he wants. Or it doesn't matter if you don't really like it, just fake it. These are not things that actually build deeper connections in our sexual, sensual, and romantic lives. These are not things that build deeper awareness to a fully communicative planet. If we just fake it, we build a story that our partner thinks they know how to pleasure us. And we will be perpetuating our own suffering for the rest of our sexual lives. Because if they think that we really enjoy that activity that we fake an orgasm with, they're going to keep doing it over and over and over again. And we will not hit a point of that sexual communion with another person. We might have our bodies interact with each other, but we're not actually enjoying ourselves. And where is that joy and bliss? And so I think having self-love builds that courage to say, thank you for what you are doing. Can we try this? And if you've discovered your own body, you know what some of those thises are. So that's what some of the things that I would tie the two together. And I believe that if we build this interlaced experience between self-love, self-compassion, self-sensuality, and self-sexuality, we are able to create within ourselves awareness of the fullness of our being. And within an awareness of the fullness of our being, we can create a space then to let others be in the fullness of their being and ask them with a full and honest heart, what would you like tonight? How can we explore together? Where shall we go out together? Because we are giving space for other people to be their full selves.
Beautiful. And this kind of connection would really be in a state of spiritual heightened consciousness as well.
Absolutely. Very, very well said. I think that, well, no, it sounds silly in some ways to say, to kind of be, but like, I believe in simple truths. I honestly believe that these things that we think are so profoundly complex are complex because of their simplicity. I love you sounds so simple, and yet it is so complex, and yet it is so profoundly simple that I can worry all day about what is love, or I can be in love. And I don't mean in love with a person. I mean fully immersed in the experience called love, to be present in it, to enjoy it, and not to be pushing ourselves to a place of futurism with it. Because there's a lot of story that sometimes happens with the feeling that we have of love when we look in someone's eyes and feel deeply and profoundly that experience of seeing the truth of all of creation and all of ourselves and all of reality in their eyes. That thing called love, seeing the truth of themselves, or closing our own eyes and feeling the truth of ourselves fully and in the truth and in that moment. And we could worry in that moment of, but how, should we move in together and how can we make this last forever? Instead of saying, in this moment, I am in love, and feeling in our skin, I am in love, as if saying, I am in Singapore or I am in Alaska, right? It is the skin experience. My body is here in Alaska, in the United States, sitting in a chair. Instead of saying that, what if we said, in this moment, I am in the thing called love? And what if we said self-love, it is what is being in that state called love, is being in that state called love with ourselves. I think there's an amazing opportunity there if we make it profoundly simple, even if it is also profoundly complex.
Beautiful. Yeah. So I'm just sitting with it and loving what you're sharing.
Yeah, I think there is an opportunity. And it's funny because as I say it, I'm like, wow, I haven't said it exactly that way, but there is a truth for me there that says about being in the moment. Because so many spiritual traditions say, here's our framework, here is our ethics or our ethos or our morals or our systems. And with that in mind, let us be present and here in our moment and truth and share our full truth with ourselves and with the world and make the world a better place through it. I think we have a chance with that through being with ourselves.
So this has been Lee Harrington with Dr. Martha Tara Lee, and we've been talking about self-love and simple truths of life. Next week, we have Embodying Emotional Liberation with Joanne Emily. So tune in to Eros Evolution next week.